G'day and welcome to Mr. Craftsmith. I'm Darren, and today's video is all about variable text and how we can use that in some of our projects and make our workflow so much quicker and smoother. Let's jump straight into it. Okay, so the first example, what we're going to have a go at is we're going to make a clock face. Now, you might think, well, that's a pretty basic sort of thing to do, but it can be a little bit more time consuming if you do it a non-standard way as opposed to a more fluent way of using the variable text function. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to draw the center of our clock. So for that, I'm just going to draw a circle. That's all we need there. Now I'm going to line that up onto the center of the workspace so it's all nice and centered. And to do that, I just need to click this little button up here on the on the menu bar. It's moved to the center of the page, or shortcut for that is P. The next thing that we need to do is we need to create the indicators, and for that I'm just going to do a little rectangle around about just like that. Doesn't really matter. You could do anything you like here and make all sorts of shapes or anything that you really want. So you know, the world is your oyster. And the other thing that we're going to need, and this is what people might normally do, is they say, okay, well, we're going to need a 12, and then we're going to need a 1, etc. And we're going to work out all these angles and all that sort of stuff. But there's another method as per this video, which is using variable text. And what it actually does is that we use the power of a CSV file, and we'll get to that in a moment. And we'll show you exactly how you can create these clock faces very simply, very easily, using a combination really of variable text and the circular array tool. And we did cover a little bit of that one previously, but this is a really good example of how you can use that circular array tool for a worthwhile project that you can do multiple different outcomes. Now, in order to use the variable text, there needs to be some different types of formatting. And the first thing that we need to start off with is the % key. And that just denotes that we're using this variable text. And the next value that we put there is the column that we are using in that variable text file, or the CSV file. So in this case, we'll just go with 0, which will be the first column in that CSV file, and we'll have a look at that in just a moment. So now we've got the text, we've got our marker, and we've got our center. So I'm just going to select all of those, and I'm going to align those along their vertical centers, because that way it'll make it all nice and clear in a minute when we see this one. I'm just going to move that one up a little bit closer to the number. So we've got our items all ready there to go. And before we do anything here, what I need to point out to you is that this currently, the format of this text doesn't really matter what the font is, but what is important is currently here it is selected to normal. Now we do need to change that, and that needs to be changed to a merge CSV font type, I guess. And that's what gives us the magic outcomes that we're looking for. So I'm just going to select those two items first, and then I want to rotate those around the center point of this circle here. So if I do a shift and I click on the circle, I move into my array tool, and I only need 12 copies. And if we pull this over to the side, you can see what it's actually done. So it's created the markers for us, and they're in exactly the right spot, because we know exactly we've got the number of instances that we need for a clock face, which is 12. And we've got here that we can rotate the object copies. So if I turn that one off, for example, it does this funky thing here, which might be fine for text, but if you're doing any sort of indicator or dial indicators, you want to make sure that that one's turned on, so we get this nice circular pattern. And we'll just run with that for the time being. The other thing that you need to make sure that you have turned on here is auto increment variable text, and we need that by 1. Okay, so that's just one increment at each time. Click on OK. So now we've got this variable text. What we need to do is have a look at the CSV file, and I've actually got it loaded here already, but we'll open it up and have a look and see what that one's all about. Okay, so this is the CSV file, and I'm just doing this in Excel. You can do this in any spreadsheet, whether it be numbers or Excel or Google Sheets or whatever it's called, but any spreadsheet application or even a text file if you're doing comma separated values. But this is the easiest method, and I've got some other stuff over here that we'll have a look at in the next example as well. And this is quite exciting as well. So let's jump into this one. So all we're doing here is I'm just putting a header in, so as I know what exactly, these could be anything really. So you can have a CSV file that represents a number of different things, as you can see here. And I've got the numbers starting at 12 because that's the top of the clock. And I'm going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now I've got an example here that you could have words, or you could have Roman numerals, you could have whatever that you want that represents each one of those indicators. So all it's doing effectively is it's going through and reading each one of those values and auto advancing and putting the next value in the next block. So that's as simple as it is for a CSV file. The important thing to do is when you are saving those files, by default, it will actually save that one as an Excel file. So when you go into File and do a Save As, just make sure that you are selecting this comma separated values here, which is the CSV file. There are a couple of different CSVs floating around here. This UTF-8, not sure really what that one is, but this is the one that is that we want to use. It's comma separated values. And for example, I'll just call this clock numbers 1, save that file. So we're back in Lightburn now, and all we need to do is browse for that CSV file. So I'm just going to clock numbers 1, and that's the one that we're wanting there. And that's now brought that CSV file into our Lightburn program. Now that's under the variable text tab here. Now if that one's not showing for you, just pop up to Window, and down the bottom here we've got variable text. Just make sure that one's ticked. Okay, so let's have a look at what this is actually going to be doing. Don't worry so much about the end value here, but what these mean here is the current one. So let's say this was the current one. That's where the starting value is. Now when we're talking with these types of files, a lot of those files will start at 0 rather than 1, so just keep that in mind. Now we're going to start at the value which is 1, which is the row, because we've got headers in there. So 0 would be the top row, which is the header row, and starting at 1 means which will be the first row of our data. And we're just going to advance by 1, and if we do a test, let's see what that one brings up. So there you can see by holding down that test, we've got those numbers that have gone in for us: 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, just like you would expect to see on a clock. Now, I know there's a bit of preparation work there, but ultimately, using this variable text tool and the circular array tool gives you a really accurate representation of a clock. And once you get used to the process, it actually makes it quite easy and fast to produce these on a regular basis with different types of styling. Now, if I want to convert those, so I've done a test and that's exactly what I want it to do. All I need to do is press this bake, the bake button, which converts all the variable text to those numbers as we saw there. And now we have our clock face. Okay, so the next example, let's try something with a few more numbers in it. So let's just move that one out of the way. And we're just going to pop that back on the center. So for this next example, we're going to do a compass, and that's got a whole lot more numbers on it. But what we might do is, rather than do the full 360 degrees, we may just do in 5-degree increments. Okay, and if we just jump back into that CSV file, I've got that all ready to go here, so we can see that I've got those numbers from 0, 5, 10, all the way through to 355 degrees, because I don't need 360 obviously, because that is the 0. Okay, so we've already got that one set up. And if we have a look at the column number that we're looking at, so remembering that column A was 0, so this will be B will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're looking for column 5, so that's a number that we need to keep in mind, column 5. Okay, so the same thing, all we're doing is selecting our text tool. Now we might have to make these a bit smaller, but let's just change that font so that it's a little bit easier to read. We'll just go with the standard Arial. And remember, we start off with the percentage and we want that 5. And let's make that one, I know that's a bit hard to see there, but we'll just do that one at that size because we've got a lot of numbers to put in there. I'm just going to center those up. Now you can put the little marker in as well, so we'll just do that one. I'm just going to put a little marker here, and let's make it nice and thin. And I'll do the same thing with these ones, is I'm just going to center those up on the verticals. Again, just make sure that this is selected as the merge CSV type. And we're just going to select those two and then our center point around which we're going to circulate those. And I've already predetermined that we need 72 of those, which is just 360 divided by 5. And that's all, put those in there, okay? Now, all I need to do is click on, we're starting again. The current value is that top value, and we're starting at row 1, which is eliminating that header row. And if we do a test, we can see that we've got those 0, 5, 10 all the way around, nice and simple. So we can bake those in by clicking the bake button, and very quickly you're able to create a pretty accurate compass. You know, it might be just a ornamental type compass, but you could do all sorts of things with this one. If you wanted to get really creative, you can go around and you could make the shorter ones in the middle. And just as an example, I'll prove that one to you. We're just going to do another one here. So let's just make our 1 degree increment. And we're going to make that a little bit more narrow because there's going to be a few of them there. And that's all I want to do there. And I want to select the marker and the circle and just make sure that they are centered. And then we're going to go into the circular array tool, and I'm going to do 360 of them. So that's every single degree. Okay. And that's how easy it is to have a really accurate compass layout that you could burn onto any material, whether it be acrylic or wood or whatever the case may be. And it may just, like I said, it may just be an ornamental piece, but it is something that theoretically, if you wanted to make a compass and you had the right instruments to do so, that you could create these accurate measurements and degree increments without any problem at all, using both variable text and the circular array tool. Okay, so for our final example, something a little bit different. So that was using numbers, but let's have a look at, let's say we wanted to create a alphabet tiles from A through to Z, all right? And that might be something that you just, so let's just make a square. And if we're making a square, remember we just hold down the shift while we're moving our mouse, and that makes that a perfect square. And for this one, I'm just going to pop this on a cut line because essentially that's what's going to be, we're going to be cutting it out. And let's jump into our CSV file again and just have a look at what we've got there. So if we have a look at that one, we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want 3 and 4. Okay, so they're the columns that we're actually going to be using, 3 and 4. The first one is going to be a letter, and that's going to be percentage. And then we wanted 3 because that's our letter of the alphabet. And if we jump onto that one, let's just make that one a little bit bigger so we can actually see it there. We're going to pop that on a fill layer. And we're just going to pop that into the square here. And then we're going to do another one, another text layer, which is going to be the word that starts with that letter A. So again, for this one, we want percentage, which is the column, and 4 was the magic column. And we're going to have to make this a little bit smaller because so it can fit across there, just for the purpose of the example. Now, obviously, you would need to make sure that you are testing these, that all the words fit, but this is just for the purpose of an example. So I'm going to select all of those. I'm going to put them vertically, align them. And as always, we just got to make sure that before we proceed and create these with the array tool, that they are a merge CSV type font. So now let's jump into the array tool, and I need 26. I'm just going to move these over a little bit so as we've got some space there. We're going to jump into the array tool, and we're going to need 26 squares, obviously. So I'm going to go 6 wide, and I'm going to go 5 deep, and that will give us 30. And I just need to take away the bottom 4. They're all selected, delete those. So now we've got our 26 squares of the alphabet. And if we have a look at those now, and we're going to do a test on those, we can see there how crazy cool is that we've got all of our letters. Now that is a reflection of what's in, so if we just have a look at that again. So we've got A for apple, B for barn, C for cow. So this was a farm related incident where you might have different sort of things that you want to do there. And I'll give you a little tip on how you can do that one. And so if we have a look in our CSV file, we can see here we've got apple, barn, cow, duck, eggs, farmer, goat, horse, etc., all the way through to Z. Now that's a super quick way of creating these, and you could have multiple lists of relevant words that you could just duplicate this quite easily. So I'm just going to bake those in, and unfortunately it doesn't, I'm not aware of a way that it can actually put an image on there as well, but that's not a bad start. But that's a perfect example of how you can create multiple different types of products using the variable text and the array tools, both the grid and the circular array tools, to give you some a massive head start as far as creating those accurately and quickly. Now, just as a final example, a final little bonus, let me just show you a quick way, like for me to sit here and come up with a list of names relevant to whatever. It would take me forever because I'm not that smart. So I'm utilizing the power of ChatGPT. Now this is on version 3.5, which is free to all users, I believe. And here's the prompt: is just give me a list of musical related items. So the last one was farmyard related items. In this one here, we've just saying give me a list of musical related items with each one starting with a different letter of the alphabet. And you can see there we've got acoustic guitar, banjo, cymbals, drums. I would never come up with that in a million years. And this did it. Let me just give you an example. I'm just going to copy this one, and we're going to do another one. Command V. Let's say give me a list of sporting related items with each one starting with a different letter of the alphabet. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. And just like that, like I couldn't even scroll as quickly as it had done it for me. So archery, bow, baseball bat, cricket ball, dumbbells, equestrian helmet, also. So you can come up with these lists, and it doesn't really take you much time at all if you know how to use something simple like ChatGPT. I would encourage you to get on and have a crack and give it a try. And you can even cater this. So let's say, for example, I'll just paste that one in and say, give me a list of animals. Animals with each one starting with a different letter of the alphabet. So let's see what that one comes up with. Okay, so that might be okay in most cases, you know, but let's say we wanted to cater this because they're alphabet letters. They're going to be things that are related that, you know, a 6-year-old could understand, or someone younger than 6 could understand. So I might just put a prompt in there. Give me a list of animals with each one starting with a different letter of the alphabet that would be suitable for children under the age of 6. Now, in most cases, this one's probably come up with a similar list, but I was experimenting with other things where that was coming up with different sorts of really complex words that weren't really relevant to, or weren't really relevant to someone that was under the age of 6. So in this case, here's another one. So we might know what a newt is. Can you give me 5 other examples for the letter N? Starting to get some unusual. So N is not a popular word for animals, hey? A narwhal, a numbat. I know what a numbat is because I'm from Australia. And Nile crocodile. So there's so you can see how useful ChatGPT can be to, if you're coming up with these types of concepts, and how you can implement the tools that are available to you. And in this case, the ChatGPT, which is free, it can come up with a whole bunch of lists of words that you can then just copy and paste into your CSV files, and you could have these in multiple different columns. And you might have, this would be fruit and veg. And then you might have another one over here that was music. And you might have one here as farmyard, etc. It might be sport, whatever the case may be. And you can feed all those terms into ChatGPT and get a list of those words super quick, super easy, and it can make your life a whole lot simpler. Hopefully you found that helpful, and give us a thumbs up if you think it was worthwhile, and it might actually start you thinking as to how you can utilize this. You can utilize it for anything in that CSV list. As long as you've got that list, it's just a sequence, so it doesn't have to be numbers that are one after the other. It could be multiples of numbers like we showed you with the compass there. So get in, have a go with this variable text and the grid and circular array tools, and have some fun designing your own projects. Until the next video, be creative and stay grateful. Bye for now.